Mm. Welcome, welcome. Ah, here we go. Ooh,
Hello, everyone.
I like that background. Very pretty, Lexi.
Thank you. Hello, Katarina.
Hi,
Hi.
Lexi.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi.
Lexi.
Mm.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Veronique. I can see
Hi,
you.
Hello.
I
Veronique.
can see Julia. Hello. Hello to everyone. I would love to see Katarina's pictures.
Pictures?
Which ones? In my bedroom?
Oh, I didn't know where they were.
I sent Lexi a picture that I put up my paintings, but they're in my bedroom and I'm not taking you all there.
I understand, but they're beautiful pictures.
Hey everyone, great to see
Hey.
you.
Hi, Wigs and Health.
Hi.
Hi, happy you're
Hi,
joining it.
Jillian.
Melissa, you look very beautiful, and Eric and I have just been noticing just the expansive smile. So nice to see you. So welcome everyone. Our Live and Love
Live and love.
is really starting to inspire these conversations. And I'm excited about this being the final week around this theme throughout May, being the nature of self-care. And I was just chatting with Cecilia and saying, you know, it's interesting. We've explored, can always in a way from the position of a reconnective healing experience, but we've explored humor and self-care, and we've explored physicality and movement. We've explored, thank you, Dr. Eric, nutrition last week, which had some very interesting knowledge and facts, as well as it included spiritual nutrition, which is obviously a very interesting way to look at nutrition. And this week, decision making. But one of the things that I'd like you to consider and ask yourself is, in and throughout this month, this theme on the nature of self-care, has it kind of come up for you in whether it's a thought or some aspect of it? Who is the self that I am caring for? We have very much established in a reconnective healing experience and awareness that there is this finite self, this body mind, this experiential projection of consciousness as consciousness, and there is our true nature, our true self. And we are always looking at this. So throughout this month, I'm just wondering if anybody kind of had to look at that, because this week and much of this week will carry into some very interactive ways in which you will be in breakout groups for the June 4th retreat, which will be on June 4th. And yes, it will apply to this month's theme. It's just we had Memorial Day in the United States, so it's been bumped a week. But decision making is going to require us to investigate and explore self-care through the lens of both selves, all selves, both the finite self and our true nature, I am. And so this was not an easy way to bring this sort of final week through you and to you, because decision making has been framed and served up to us in experience with a very strong edge, or I should say press, on the side of the finite self. Even to just Google the nature of decision making, often it comes up as a noun. It's the action or process of making decisions, and especially important ones. It's explained as process, skill, model, a matrix, steps. It's regarded as a cognitive process resulting in the selection of a belief or a course of action among several possible alternative options that could either be rational or irrational. I'm serving you up the way in which we are taught about decision making often. It refers to a process, again, in reasoning based on assumptions of values, preferences, beliefs of the decision maker. So there's an implication, the material view of self is that there's this separate decision maker. Every decision-making process produces a final choice. This is part of the wiki definition, which may or may not prompt action. So we're gonna throw in a little test here. Grab a little piece of paper or something to write with. We're going to just, and don't get too caught up because we're not going to spend a lot of time in this, but we want you
But
to.
we are going to check your spelling. I'm kidding.
That is humor for Jillian's true self. Quickly write down the first thing that comes up. Okay, I really want to reference that. Is if we were to ask you, what has been your best decision? Just write something down. What has been your best decision? Just don't. No, unfortunately, we don't have
Don't
a lot of time to
analyze
explore.
it. Whatever
Just
comes to
pop.
mind, you don't have to wait and go, well, was this decision better than that? Your best immediate response to what's your best decision?
What has been your best decision? And then we want you to quickly capture in the same sort of inspirational way, what has been your worst decision? Just throw something down. Okay. And now I want you to look at what you wrote really kind of just intimately. And I want you to ask yourself this question, and you're going to write this down for each. In hindsight, because decision has been made, it could have been something today or your life, it doesn't matter. For either or both, do you think you used intuition or thinking without thinking? Let me repeat that. For each or both, best or worst decision, in hindsight, do you think for either or both, you used intuition or thinking without thinking? And just place it next to one or the other or both, or you could say, I don't know. Really, this isn't a test. We're going to explore this. And sometimes it's an interesting exercise to get the personality out of the way for a moment. And this can help with this, because most decision making for most of us is perceived to be attained through thinking. Okay. This is, and the questions that we might ask, and you don't have to write anything down, is, I'm just going to throw this out there. Just receive. Do we believe the centerpiece of decision making is created outside of the mind? Or are our thoughts directing us to make personal decisions? Just let that, don't have to have an answer. Do we think the centerpiece of decision making, this is very personal, utterly intimate, is created outside of the mind? Or are our thoughts directing us to make personal decisions? Do we feel at times we are victims of random thoughts creating the world for us? And I will give these to Cecilia to put in our follow-up email, just this. Do we find ourselves in a state of a feeling or a thought that we're victim to thoughts creating the world for us? And then this is an important last consideration. We're just investigating. Do we believe that there is someone inside us who is choosing our thoughts? I love Barbara's laughing. I mean, I'm asking these questions. Please do laugh. This is very playful. Is there someone inside us who is choosing our thoughts? If so, what about involuntary thoughts? And what about conscious thinking? So I'm going to throw another little something at you. Think of the number 12. Do you think of the number 12? I asked you to think of the number 12. Are you able to think of the number 12? Yes? Okay, now think of the number 13 or 14, right? You can think of the number 13 or 14. So if we can do this, then technically, if I were to say to you, only think happy thoughts, you could do that, right? You could do that. Technically speaking, yes? Only have happy thoughts. You could do this. So I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to suggest strongly, first of all, no, there is not a person in us choosing one thought over another. We obviously don't come up with every thought we have. And we should probably question that very seriously. All thinking does appear in our mind, but our minds have been conditioned by our families and parents and culture. And so not all of our thoughts have a personal origin, right? We inherit thoughts. Katerina is laughing. Good. This is an important entry into this concept of decision making. I'm glad I'm entertaining you. Yay, I was worried it was going to be a little too heavy, but it isn't. So
I know when Katerina is enjoying herself here, because not only does she get that amazing smile on her face, but your whole self comes to it. Katerina goes up and down, and I see the whole movement. You're delightful.
So if we inherit our thoughts, and we can accept part of that at times, what I'd like to suggest is a very simple premise going into what's going to be an extended exploration and investigation. I'm going to suggest that what's important to consider is not the content of each thought. It's impossible anyway. You cannot consider the content of thoughts. They come and they go. But I do want us to become ever so experienced and curious about asking the question, on whose behalf did the thought arrive? And that's much easier. There's only two possibilities to this question. On whose behalf did the thought arrive? Was it on behalf of the finite separate self or our true nature? And I'm going to give you a little way to frame a thought that might come in or arise on behalf of the separate self. It might be a thought around the resistance to what is. This resistance can take kind of two forms. Let's say, I want or need such and such to happen or take place in order to be happy. Or I don't want what is present and need it to disappear in order to be happy. These two, desire and fear, are two sides of the same coin. And this is the apparent self. This is the finite self. This is the separate self. So investigate that. And I think that's a lot to ask you to do, but we're going to explore this because we've committed to the nature of self-care. So we have to define now, not just care. We've explored
But
care and
self.
humor, and we've explored the care of physicality and nutrition. Now we have to explore self because, okay. And to give it a frame so we don't get too out there again, these are the only two possibilities we're going to play with. So I'm going to suggest that we have the capacity when thought arises on behalf of the separate self around a resistance to what is, what isn't, what I need, what I don't need. In this investigation or question, on whose behalf is this thought arising? You will find that there's no one there. So you can drop that thought. It's like you have an insta filtering system if we can ask the right question. It arises on behalf of, again, I'm going to say this illusion. You can, my sister refers to this as the ultimate mind discernment, but we can practice this just a little bit. And you're going to notice how quickly thoughts fall away or cease arising. And it's a perfect plan that the reconnective healing experience is the breadth of how we're going to look at this, because you know, and actually I'm so glad that Wiggs, tell me your first name. You were on IG today, yes?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm Robert.
Robert, thank you so much, Robert. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So just Robert had a very sort of tangible experience today that in the midst of an kind of an interaction, the thoughts just disappeared. So we know that in a reconnective healing experience, the dissolving of otherness, this return to our true nature, this slow sort of lifting off of that obscuration of thinking dissolves. And sometimes our thoughts just vanish. So we can very easily investigate maybe thoughts that are arising practically from what we'll call our true nature. They're thoughts about truth and creativity. They're celebratory thoughts. You'll notice they are really of just this category, if you will. So as other thoughts cease to arise in feeling and perception of, do I want this or do I want that? The decision-making activity that might accompany, don't accompany the thought. I know this is a lot to digest, don't worry. So process, skills, steps, this part of the separate self has fallen away. And in a way, that approach to decision making tends to fall away. That might include intuition. But thinking without thinking presents itself. This is innately woven into a reconnective healing experience. It's not something you have to learn how to do. It happens. And there is a diminishment of fear, anger, time, worthiness issues. Those decision-making activities that produce fear, anger, worthiness. Okay, so let's just be lost in a little of this. Don't worry. Next question, because this is something we're fed with tremendous concentration. Do your thoughts create the objective world? Write it down. Do your thoughts create the objective world? Important component in decision making when we're talking about self-care, and we're speaking specifically into our true nature. I'm going to suggest no, thoughts don't create the objective world. We are led to believe that thought and attention bring about whatever you're focused on. But I'm going to give you a good example of why that may not always be so. An animal or an infant has an experience of the objective world, but never has the experience of thinking about it being an objective world. Justin, I hope you're taking lots of notes, because you're not going to be on as a love leader later, but I am going to ask you to do a tremendous summary because I want your insights. So this is science, and this is also where we're heading. And don't worry, it's a lot. So think about it. Your animal at home. Julie, where's your cat? Come on, kitty. Right. So your cat has an experience of the objective world, but do you think that your beautiful cat is thinking about it being an objective world? No. Right. Okay. So it's possible, and here's now where you're all coming back to me, to have a perception of the world without having a thought about that world. Right? It's possible to have a perception. We've just explained. Infants have a perception of the world, but they don't have to have a thought about that world, an opinion, a perspective, right? So thoughts, thinking adds an interpretation to that perception. These are all parts of your decision making. So I'm walking you back because, believe it or not, you make decisions this way all the time. And so we want to sort of be considering what goes into decision making, really. So thoughts add an interpretation to our perception. We're all experiencing perception. That's what we do in our bodies, in our minds, right? That is experience. Perception is an experience. Thoughts interpret that perception and tells you that it's perception of an outside world. But that is not our actual experience, because the perception takes place in consciousness. Let me say that again. We know it's possible to have a perception of the world without having a thought about that world. Infants and animals do it all the time. Thoughts add an interpretation to that perception. And since we are all experiencing perception, perception is experience. Thoughts interpret that perception and tell us it's a perception of an outside world. But that is not our actual experience, because the perception takes place in consciousness. We explore this in reconnective healing sometimes when we do the holographic reconnective healing experience, when we ask you to use eyes. Scientifically, we're all staring at each other and we're in color and we're vibrant and we're right side up. And the article of your Oculus does not see anything in the way we perceive it. Perception is an experience. So perception is a fact. The belief that it's a perception of an outside world is a concept or belief that thought adds to perception.
Or the perception that all of you are going to be able to continue to join us in this discussion is partially correct. However, for you YouTubers, we're going to be signing off for some of you right now, but you know what? If you join the Reconnective Life community, you can continue with this conversation and others. So please do. The first month is free. And also, if you want to find out more about reconnective healing, take a look at the portal. The first hour of that is free, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So much as we hate to say goodbye to you YouTubers,
Click
we
the
will
link.
continue here. Click on the link at the bottom of the page and you can continue with us. Okay.
Bye.
Bye all.
Okay. So let me pull this in a little bit. And I want you just to consider we are taught through belief that the outside world that we are currently having a perception of is made out of stuff called matter. Okay.
Hi, I'm Eric Pearl, and we have launched an online course called The Portal. It's an expansion of our online essentials, our level 1, an 8+ hour e-learning course.
And we decided to add content because our students were asking for more. What is a portal? It's a doorway to transformation.
It includes the 8 hours of the online essentials course,
2 key chapters, one on love and one on healing, and workbooks from our worthiness episode from the series The Inner Compass.
more than 10 hours of content.
The portal helps us discover our roadblocks that may be stopping us from living our fullest potential.
How does the portal help bring about these benefits? Easy to follow short segments with interactive exercises, information acquired not only through the mind, but through interaction with the frequencies themselves. Effortless learning and personal evolution.
It brings the possibility for instant transformation, healing, and the evolution of each and every one of us in our everyday lives.
Hey there, family. Dr. Eric and Jillian here.
Welcome, everyone.
And we're very excited about Reconnective Life, our first online global community. This is the most exciting way we've been able to get together since I founded the Reconnection. It'll be a place where we can do things together. We'll move into breakout rooms at times when that's appropriate. We'll have energy interactions and meditations and exercises. In other words, expect things you haven't seen before.
You are so charged.
Things we
He is so lit about every new way we get to be together every day. Just be together. Let us just speak a little bit about what is going to be the shape of this community.
In this community, we can share and discover more. Here we can talk to each other, we can chat, we can learn from and about one another. Jillian, me, our life leaders, and you will be in daily conversation with you. Weekly, we will have Facebook Lives.
We will be with you every Wednesday. Sometimes it'll be just Eric. On occasion, it might just be me. Sometimes it'll be the two of us. It's all about giving you a way to look at the week living in the frequencies.
And in every 4th week, we will include a live Q&A so we can talk about things that have been coming up for us, discuss back and forth, share, grow, expand together.
And the ever-growing library of content that has been created over 20 years that will be on demand for you. It will be on-demand content for you to view, enjoy, share again with your inner circle.
And monthly, we are going to have live Zoom retreats. We're going to bring in some exercises and experiences and things that previously we've reserved for our physical retreats, you know, when we were in the different location resorts and things. And we're modifying them so that we can work with these with you in your home, in your living room, in your den.
Put into the chat line, what is facility?
Thank
going. We're having these weekly Zoom in-depth Q&As.
Finally, they have a place and space to just define what does that really mean, living in the frequencies.
This is something that is in all of us.
Everyone can do this.
It doesn't matter how many levels you've gone through or how well you know the programs. It's a community that allows us to recognize how interrelated we all are as receivers of energy, light, and information.
See you there.
Reconnective Life, living in the frequencies every day.